Welcome back to another edition of Bearcat Chats, and thrilled to be joined by three terrific leaders in the LGBTQ community for Pride Month. Jordyn-Paige Plair is from Shades, Soledad Arianna Perez is from Transcend and Shades, and Allison Abrams is from Keshet. Thank you all for being with me.
No problem. Thank you
for having us.
Thank
Of
you.
course. Tell me, let's start. We all know June is Pride Month, but Soledad, tell me the history of Pride Month. How did it start for those that may not be familiar?
Well, let's see. We can start with the month itself. June has been recognized as Pride Month as we know it since 1999 to 2000, but it originates from the Stonewall Riots, which began on June 28, 1969. These riots were against the police brutality in the queer community and began from one specific night at the Stonewall Inn, a local gay bar, which was raided by the police, and the gays, lesbians, and transgender people finally said this is enough. Marsha P. Johnson, a Black trans woman, led the riots with Sylvia Rivera, a Latinx trans woman. Their activism and bravery in the face of adversity is why we really have gay pride today.
And Jordyn, what does it mean to you, Pride Month, when we get to the month of June?
Pride Month for me definitely means being able to feel comfortable with your own identity and sexuality. I also think it's a good way for people who feel comfortable to come out. I've had a lot of friends and family members who have felt the most comfortable during Pride Month to come out to their family and friends. And I think it's a good way for people of the LGBT plus community to come together and support each other.
And the same question to you, Allison.
Right now, especially with everything going on, it's a great reminder that this fight is really for the most vulnerable among us, specifically Black trans people and queer people of color who've led this fight, and we're still fighting for them today with everything that's going on. And that's what Pride is about right now for me, is holding up the most vulnerable in our community.
And Allison, you hit on some really important points there, and we'll pivot to Jordyn. And all of you, please weigh in, but we'll start with Jordyn. In quarantine, what has changed in terms of, obviously you think of parades and things like that as a staple of Pride Month. How have events gone virtual? How have things changed because of the pandemic?
I actually myself haven't been to many virtual events. I did go to the Lavender event at the end of the school year, and it was hosted by Soul, and that was amazing. Of course, everything's virtual, but it's awesome also because we have access to people who support the queer community, because you can go on Zoom in your own home. So instead of having those people fly out all the way to Binghamton, we can just have them right on Zoom with us. And more of the context of parades and protests, of course, there has to be way more social distancing guidelines. I believe Pride is still canceled for this year, but the celebrations that they are doing, I read that they're focusing it more on the Black Lives Matter movement in the beginning, in order to support the queer and trans and LGBT Black lives that are on the line right now. And also, I have been to a protest for the Black Lives Matter movement. It is way more safe than people think. People stay outside and 6 feet apart, and also use their masks, of course. So I think, of course, a lot of things have changed due to the pandemic, but we're definitely still taking safety precautions that are keeping us safe.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've been to a few protests, some that were centered just around Black Lives Matter, and one recently that was geared specifically towards the LGBT community. And so it's just kind of this perfect convergence of what Stonewall was about. You know, Stonewall was a riot, and we need to remember that the most change often happens with, you know, civil unrest, and that's a very valid form of protest. And I also have seen, like, people are really being there for their community and, you know, promoting health and safety at these protests. A lot of people handing out masks and hand sanitizer, like, so, you know, all the things about these protests not being safe are incorrect, because I've seen a lot of people being there for their community at these protests. And another thing I would say that's not the traditional way of celebrating Pride, but I have used TikTok to connect to the queer community. Yeah, there's a lot of queer creators on there, very diverse, like, fun community, and it's a great platform to, you know, uplift queer creators, and specifically queer creators of color. So I highly recommend TikTok.
It's not just dance videos.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Soledad.
I've been to a lot of events virtually and some in person. Most recently, I went to a pride flag raising in Bridgeport, and the mayor was there, and it was just a good way. It was the second annual pride flag raising, which is still new, and it's still important to realize, like, pride is not everywhere in the country, at least like the way it is treated in New York. So we need to be more connected now than ever, especially after the Trump administration did try. They did take away our protections from healthcare, and luckily we had the Supreme Court on our side for job security. I feel like both Allison and Jordyn are 100% correct, and we need to keep up, especially now that Pride is just a riot this year. It's a rebellion.
Allison, Jordyn, you both were nodding your heads. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, Soledad is right. Black trans lives are really on the line right now. And it's both about, you know, rebelling against the system that is continuously killing Black trans people and trans people in general. But it's also about, you know, holding community space and holding a safe space for trans and, you know, gender non-conforming people, because they need the most love right now. And Pride is as much about love and, you know, community safety as it is about rebellion. So yeah, both great points.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of them. And I wanted to add that I feel it is important for my community, the Black community, to uphold these values of keeping all Black people safe and making sure that all Black lives matter and not only the cis ones. Because I did do some research, and they have confirmed at least 15 transgender non-conforming individuals that have been fatally shot or killed during this year only. So it's a very staggering amount of people, and I know that the harassment is not only from our government officials or from our police officers. I know it's also from the Black community themselves, and I think that there are a lot of people who support Black trans lives in the Black community, but there are some who don't. And I think it's important for us all to support trans lives as well as heterosexual lives.
Those are some startling numbers, and certainly extraordinarily valid points, Jordyn. Tell me, all three of you, and some of you overlap in organizations. I know the fall, well, it's not that far away, even though we're just starting summer. What are your organizations starting to come together with or form in terms of ideas for either virtual or in-person events?
Shades and Transcend are already in the midst of organizing our yearly events, and since there are two people here from Shades, I'm just going to mention the Transcend part of it. Transcend has multiple events, most notably 3 events every year, but 2 in the fall are Transgiving, which is always a big hit in Transcend, as well as our Trans Day of Remembrance, which is a big collaboration with the Q Center, and most multicultural orgs on campus do also try to get involved for it. In the spring, we have Trans Day of Visibility, but at the moment, we're just planning for Transgiving and making sure this fall is going to be as welcoming as possible for the incoming freshmen.
I'm aware that Shades, well, I'm taking part in helping Shades get together with other communities of color and other clubs of color in our school in order to raise awareness about queer lives. And we're definitely planning a lot of events in order to recognize these lives and to make sure not only people of color, but to make sure non-people of color are aware of our presence and our strength and are allowed to ally with us as well.
Yeah, I think, so I actually just graduated, so I'm not currently planning events, but I have been following Keshet and the e-board a bit. Right now they're planning a movie night. I know for Keshet, because we're so small, a lot of our work is to just kind of create a social space for queer Jews on our campus, because there's not many spaces where, you know, you can find other queer Jews and have a sense of community. So I think things like movie nights and just like social Zoom events are really important. And another thing that I hope that they're continuing to work on is in the spring, we wanted to put together a sex education workshop and collaborate with Shades and the other LGBT orgs on campus, because I've always loved, as my role as president of Keshet, was my favorite part was always collaborating with the other LGBTQ orgs, because we have such a, you know, great community, great student leaders, and we don't get to see a lot of each other a lot because our, you know, our organizations are all geared towards specific identities, and that's great. And I love that there's a space for everyone on our campus, but I also love when we come together and can, you know, really connect as a diverse community.
Very well said, and it's great to hear all the things that are going on with your respective organizations. Jordyn, Soledad, Allison, thanks so much for doing this. Congratulations, Allison, on graduating, and look forward to being in touch, and wishes for a great summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.